Good evening, everyone. I want to start off by thanking everyone for taking their time out to be here today. And I do hope everyone is excited about today's session as I am. Our session for this evening is all about preparing for Oxbridge, or the top G5 universities, which are known as the Golden Triangle. Now, you may be asking and wondering, what are the top 5 or G5 universities? Well, they're University of Oxford, University of Cambridge, UCL, Imperial College London, and LSE. Now, preparing and applying to universities for the first time can be an exciting and daunting experience for many international students, including parents. Now, applying to the highest ranking and the UK's famous universities can be even more daunting, terrifying, and mysterious for many. Hopefully, this session will demystify any of the myths or the ambiguity surrounding the application process at Oxbridge. We welcome any questions, so feel free to write them in the chat box, and hopefully we'll cover them at the end of the presentation, of course. I'd like to really stress to please keep your microphone muted at all times to avoid any interruptions, and everyone can be able to hear the presentation clearly. To give you a bit of briefing of who I am and who we are, for those of you who do not know me, my name is Shuruq Bandi. I am the founder of Wiser Study and a licensed UK higher education expert, registered by the British Council, and we are a registered UCAS center. We do specialize in helping and guiding students for over 18 years through higher education planning and preparation to study at top UK universities. For today, I'm excited to introduce Matthew, who's also a Cambridge graduate as well. He will be sharing with us some insight about what it takes to prepare for Oxbridge, including the top G5 universities. Without further ado, I give the floor to Matt.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's my pleasure to be talking to you from London. As has been said, my name is Matt Tai. I was at Cambridge many years ago, and I did 4 years there. I studied English literature, and I did a year at the Judge Business School, studying the management studies tripos. I went to a college called Magdalen College, which is the best college if anyone asks. So it's very important you always say that is the best college when anyone asks. And like I said, I've worked in international education for 15 years. I've worked with students from 18, 90, 100 different nationalities. I've worked at all stages, from schools through to universities. So hopefully, what I'm trying to do today is to give you a bit of an insight into, as has been said, what makes a great Oxbridge G5 student, but also a few questions to think about. I'm not sure what stage of your educational journeys you're at, what school year you're in. And as you get closer to the deadline, you'll need to think about details like, the kind of personal statements. This is more an idea of what you need to start thinking about a bit earlier, even looking at what subjects you choose, how you choose those subjects, and how that might progress into a great application, and really helping you guys achieve everything you possibly want from your study goals, and hopefully make it to the UK and study in one of the top universities here. We'd love to welcome you. So just to give you some context as to who we are and what we do as a company and Wiser Study. We've worked with many students for a number of years. We work with students from all over the world. The average success rate for someone applying to Oxford or Cambridge University is 18%. So that's slightly over 1 in every 5 students gets in. On our programs, and if you sort of work with our supports, we actually managed to do 43%. So we do know what we're talking about, as professionals, as educationalists, as people who have worked with Oxford and G5 for years. And again, you can see, of the students we've worked with over many years, G5 applicants have about 85% success rate. 85% of our students will go on to study at a G5 university. So we are focused on the UK at the moment. I'll offer a bit of insight into the US as well later, just to compare very briefly. So again, lots of decisions, but just so you know what we're doing. These are the areas we operate in, and I promise you that we've worked with thousands and thousands of students just like yourselves, some of whom might think, God, that's terrifying. I can't think of, how do I start? Where do I go? What on earth do I do to get in the UK universities? And we've worked with people like you. We've helped you get there. So I'm just going to offer some of those insights we've learned over the years. So I'm going to talk for a little while. There's going to be 3 key areas that I look at. A little bit first on how to choose your subject. This might sound silly to some people. Say, well, I want to study medicine. I know I want to study medicine since I was 5 years old. My dad's a doctor. That's great. However, a lot of students don't know that, and it really does impact your application. I didn't actually choose English to study until about 2 weeks before the personal statement was being written. I was going for some unknown reason, I don't know why, until I realized I really love English, and that's something I'm passionate about, and that's something we'll try to sort of get across in the presentation about how important that is. So that's the first thing to start thinking about, because that'll impact your steps and what you need to do next. But then we're also going to look at what qualities the top universities look for, whether that's UK, US. What are the criteria, the 5 sort of most important skills, actions and evidence? What evidence can you provide that you can demonstrate those qualities and what that they are looking for? And then just very quick at the end, you might be thinking, why the UK? I want to go Singapore, I want to go Australia, I want to go Europe, I want to go USA. So again, just a little bit of direction about how it's different and how the UK actually might be quite attractive compared to somewhere like the States, the USA, for example. So that's what we're going to cover. And so first up, I'm just going to have a quick chat about subjects and what you might want to study. Again, I don't know how old you are. I don't know what you're in at school. I don't know what stage of the process you're at. It's okay not to know. It's okay to do a lot of reading across different subjects. But some of the key questions you need to be asking yourselves: what do you enjoy? I know this sounds very silly and patronizing, of course I like this, but it's really, really key. And as I just said, I realized that my favorite subject was English, and I thought, why am I trying to do anything else? I love, discovering new literature. I love sort of Shakespeare, etc. And that's why I chose that subject. And you're going to be doing it for 3 years. It's the only subject you're going to be doing. You might be doing 5 subjects, 7 subjects now for IB, 8, 9, whatever. You're only doing one thing for 3 years. So first and foremost, make sure you are really, really passionate about what you want to do, not only to impact your enjoyment, but also universities can tell. They'll know if you're faking enthusiasm. They'll be able to spot straight away in an interview or a personal statement that you're making stuff up. They want to see real passion, and they want to see that you are really, really interested and motivated in this subject that you've chosen to specialize in. Now, for some of you, obviously this will impact your career. As an English literature graduate, obviously I can do anything I want. I have no skill set, and I came out and did education. But some of you might be already set on law. You might be set on medicine, you might be set on engineering. Again, think about the type of job you want. Do you want to be in office space? Do you want to be creative? Do you want to do data? Do you want to save the world? Think ahead. Don't just think ahead of what you enjoy, but also think, where do you want to be and what do you want to get to? Because obviously there's going to be a big impact. Something like law you can get into later. You don't have to specialize in law. In the UK, you can do a GDL, a PG, I can't remember what it's called, the conversion course. But do think ahead a little bit. And then another key thing is what happens during the process. Then they are all quite different. Even if you're studying medicine, you're definitely set to do medicine. Some universities are going to be very interview heavy. Some are going to base it on admissions tests. Some are going to base it on, different parts of your application process. Cambridge and Oxford are different. Oxford tend to not interview as many people as Cambridge. Set somebody else in. So it's a bit about passion, a bit about looking ahead to the future, and a bit about statistics and data analysis and being really clever about where you're studying. So what, why, and how, what's the process in getting there? These are the 3 elements that you need to be thinking about really carefully. And like I say, it's not as simple as choosing Oxford or Cambridge. They have different success rates, they have different syllabuses, and even the same subjects in different universities is going to be widely different. Here we go. Here's some good examples for you. So, there's all students, let's say, not me, because I'm English, as I say, I know nothing about science, but this person enjoys science. They haven't done much reading outside of school, but this is definitely going to be something they specialize in the future, and they want to work in a lab. So they're thinking, right, okay, I definitely want to work in something biomedical, something in medicine and treating diseases. And then so they've decided where they want to be in the future. They decided what they enjoy, but then they have to look at the application process and how do you play to your strengths? And as you'll see, the students not very good at writing essays. Fair enough, that's a very difficult skill. And I don't think anyone's good at writing essays until they get to university sometimes. So that's definitely a key skill to learn. Academic writing and critical analysis is something you really have to focus on, because otherwise it's a nasty shock. Trust me. That was a nasty shock for me when I got there. So again, they're predicted A stars. They're very good at communicating. They're very good at speaking. And they think they've impressed during an interview. They might not be so good with their written skills. So all of this they've considered. They've considered the data, the statistics. They've considered the future and where they want to be. And the kind of the conclusion that they're coming to is they need to do a bit more reading outside the classroom about biology-related subjects, because you've got to demonstrate an interest. And interest doesn't mean you're achieving top grades. It doesn't mean you're top in your class and you love the lessons and the homework. It means you're going beyond that. So you've got to demonstrate going beyond the classroom. UK universities don't often need an essay, although US universities do. So this person's probably looking at the UK, because there's a lot more to the application process in person in the UK. And again, they're thinking about who interviews for these subjects. Most UK universities will interview for medicine, which plays their student skills. Oxbridge interview for every subject. So again, they're probably thinking Oxford is where I need to go. And this is the thought process of a future medic, a future doctor. And it's kind of the key questions they're asking themselves, even as young as, when they're doing their GCSEs, if that's where you are now. I'm not saying you have to know everything. You don't have to be set on a goal, but you do have to start thinking, okay, this is probably where I want to be. I need to do some exploring. I need to start asking myself some questions. So that's the first step, subject choice. And you don't choose something you think you're going to do because you feel as if you have to. If you feel like there's a pressure to be a doctor or something like that, but you hate blood, that's not going to work. It's got to be something that you love and you can demonstrate real interest in, and you know that you're going to succeed, and you're going to spend the next 20, 30 years developing and kind of choosing to do. And as I say, top universities, particularly Oxford and Cambridge, will spot this. They'll recognize the really passionate students, the students who are telling the truth about what they want to do. So then, okay, you've chosen a subject. What are the top international universities looking for? What are the criteria? There's really experienced admissions tutors. They're asking themselves questions. They're saying, what skills do the students need to show me to know that they deserve a place at this world-leading institution? So there are 5 really. You can pick 20, you can pick 30, you can pick 50 different skills, but the core 5 that we like to focus on, the 5 different areas that we think you should be developing from whatever age, all the way through to submitting your application, are these. So number 1 is academic attainment. How well are you doing? Now, this is a base level. Every student who goes to top UK universities is going to get a good grade. This is the building block from what you should do. So you have to make sure that you are actually succeeding in the classroom first and foremost. Then comes the passion that I've already talked about. How much do you want to study? How can you show this off? What have you done beyond the classroom? And that feeds into self-motivation. Can you set your own workload outside of the structured curriculum and lessons you're doing? When you get to university, again, trust me, you get there and suddenly you have about, particularly in English literature, maybe 4 contact hours per week, and you're expected to write 3 2,000-word essays. And I'm going, what? Well, how do I? This is very unusual to me. And universities want to check that you're self-motivated and you're okay of managing that sort of new workload. They're not gonna micromanage you like you have at schools. They want to know that you're mature enough, you're academically responsible, you're academically interested enough to go out and design these timetables and make sure you're managing your workload. And then the other thing they're looking for is critical thinking. So what I always say in interviews is we do loads of data collection, and in science we know there's quite likely to be these questions on these areas, and you have to draw this graph or something like that. But my tip for interviews is always, you're not supposed to know everything. It's okay occasionally to say, okay, I haven't studied that. You've shown me a brand new thing that I haven't seen before. But based on my wider reading, based on my knowledge in this area that I've kind of looked into, I don't know the exact answer, but I can draw these conclusions. So you can apply your knowledge, whatever you do have, to circumstances and situations that you haven't seen before. You've got to be able to be nimble, really creative in your thinking, and critically analyze everything you're given. Question everything. Always question evidence. question ideas. It's okay to do that as long as you're doing it in a constructive and academically rigorous way. And then finally, if you've achieved all of these things and the universities think, okay, great, they tick these 4 boxes, they're also looking for communication skills. So it's all very well to have read 1,000 books, but if you can't articulate, if you aren't ready to discuss with peers, with professors who are world experts, your ideas and kind of get your points across, you're not going to fit in at those universities. And this is the sort of thing that they test in interviews. This is the sort of thing they want to check, that you are able to back up your thoughts, to be able to express your thoughts, and to really articulate the academically sound ideas that you've got from critical thinking, from an analysis, and that you've been motivated to develop for yourself. So how do you show these qualities? I mean, you could write, I am very critically minded and I'm a good communicator in your personal statement. I think the obvious response is going to be, well, how do you show that? I don't think anyone's going to buy that if you just say it. So how do you demonstrate it, and how do you show off how great you are? Now, depending on what stage you're at in your school journey, it's not too late, whatever stage you're at, but there are certain things you can do. And often these are a few academic methods and super curricular activities. So that is activities beyond the curriculum that are academic. It's not extracurricular. Extracurricular is being captain of your football team or your netball team. Super curricular are academically rigorous activities that are not linked to your classroom learning, but they show you've gone out and you've sought out extra knowledge and motivation. And it doesn't matter if you haven't decided on your subject. As I say, developing knowledge in different areas can actually help you do this. If you're not sure between engineering and physics, to go out and say, I've done some research into engineering and physics, shows that you are critically analyzing where you are, and you can draw your conclusions after you've done that knowledge building. So there are different ways to build your knowledge, and it's something it's a course that we offer. It's called knowledge building for a reason. And how do you do that? So you should be looking at academic articles, academic journals, academic books. And we'll look at how it varies by subject area shortly, but for English, that'll be a wide range of books all the way through from Chaucer through to very modern days. And then for sciences and medicine and everything like that, you should be looking at journals, subscribing and reading regularly journals, magazines. You should be looking at academic papers. You should be trying to join online courses. It's volunteering and it's paying for courses. It shows that you're interested in your subject and you're willing to go out of your way. Something like an EPQ. I'm not sure which school you guys are at, but the EPQ is an extended project qualification. It's half an A-level that's beyond the A-level syllabus. So it's an extra long essay of 5,000 words that you can do, and it always bolsters your application. Oxford and Cambridge say, we love seeing an EPQ, and so do G5 and Russell Groups. We love seeing if a student's done an EPQ because it's not necessary, it doesn't count towards their offer, but it's quite a lot of work in a subject area that you care about, and you've gone out and spent lots of hours writing a really detailed 5,000 word essay, and we love seeing that. And they will always ask you about that in the interview. So in your personal statement, as we'll look at, you're looking at stuff that's going to prompt a discussion around your interests, and that's where you get to prove what you're saying. Academic competitions are great, Olympiads, debates, anything like that. The more you can do, again, looks great. And just keep you up to date with the news. It sounds daft. I'm very old school. I still roll an old-fashioned paper, and I don't think anybody else does that. But so you can access it however you want. But keep up to date with local economic news or politics news, and just stay interested. Again, it shouldn't be work. If it's an area you want to study and work in, this should be a pleasure for you. Well, sort of a pleasure. It's a little bit of pain, but it should be something you enjoy and you're looking forward to do. And then, of course, work experience. If you can go out and do a few weeks unpaid somewhere or paid in a certain area, all of this stuff can go into your personal statement. You can talk about it. You can display the passion that you have for your subject. And here's how it changes by subject area. This isn't a completely rigorous scientific analysis. That's impossible. But green means good. You're clever people. Hopefully you've realized this. Red means doesn't matter. Orange means, yeah, it's kind of okay, but it's not vital. So, for example, if you were studying the arts, which would be history, English, they love seeing that you've got a wide number of books. We say you should at least read and know in detail 20 books before you start applying. They don't really care about academic articles. That's the sort of stuff you'll do later at university. Research papers may be a little bit online courses don't mean anything because it's more about self-analysis and self-motivation. EPQs are great, and so on. And something like sciences, it's all relevant. So biological sciences and medicine, they love seeing anything extra you can do, anything that contributes to that, because they're such rigorous, demanding degrees, and because they're so in demand, anything you can display is going to be questioned and picked up on and will set you apart. So any of these things are going to add value to your application. This is how you're demonstrating critical thinking, it's how you're demonstrating passion, it's how you're showing that you're able to express your ideas outside of the classroom, and it's all absolutely vital to the qualities that universities are looking for, particularly top UK universities, particularly Oxbridge and G5. So when I've been talking a little bit about breadth, depth in a knowledge in an area, this is kind of what feeds into your personal statement a little bit. But before you start applying, before you do these things as part of the process, you have to be thinking as far ahead as possible about the breadth and depth of your knowledge. So I'm going to use English literature as an example, because that's what I studied. As I say, I know nothing about medicine. So for example, if I was looking at breadth and depth in English literature, breadth, I'd be looking to have at least having read one, maybe a couple of books from each era. So maybe something from medieval, something from the Renaissance, Tudor era, something from sort of the Georgian Victorian era, a couple of plays, a couple of poems, maybe some of the romantic poets, something World War II, and then something modern day. And that would demonstrate great breadth. Now, breadth is great in the admissions tests because you don't know what's coming and you can prepare a certain way of the admissions tests, but the more knowledge you have across an area, the more likely you're going to be comfortable in the admissions test. In the interview, they'll test both breadth and depth, and personal statement I'll talk about in a second about how that works, but the depth in the personal statement is interesting. So what I mean by that is when you've got your breadth and you've read the whole spectrum, or at least tasted the spectrum in any subject, then you go, wow, okay, this is something I'm passionate about. I'm going to choose 3 areas where I'm going to go into real depth. So I'm going to focus on, I'll give some examples in a second, but say in English, I focused on World War I poetry, and I went into that in real detail. And I put that in my personal statement, and they picked up on that. And they asked me about it in the interview. At the same time as demonstrating that depth, they also in the interview gave me some unseen text and said, okay, based on your breadth of reading, what can you tell us about this? So when I'm talking about breadth and depth, this is what the knowledge building element does. This is what the academic articles, this is what the competitions do. They refine your knowledge, they give you a wide taster that allows you to go and select what you're going to focus on. And it's that balance between breadth and depth that's key to your applications. And again, it feeds back into those criteria, it feeds back into what universities want. It all helps towards a successful Oxbridge application. Now, when you're choosing the topics to go into depth into, there are 3 sort of areas. And again, I've talked about how you do it. So you need that general grounding, and that's the breadth. So you need to be comfortable acknowledging the wide range of spectrum, the wide spectrum of thoughts across the entire subject area, which for medicine is incredibly vast. In any area, it's incredibly vast. But you've got to be aware of it at least. You've got to be able to, again, critically think on your feet and be nimble and say, I haven't specialized there, but I can know about it because I've touched upon it in my breadth of reading. However, after that, as I say, you need those 3 topics of depth, and that's what goes into your personal statement, and that's what you're trying to direct the conversation towards. So if you say, I am really passionate about First World War poetry, which is what I did, that's where they're going to ask you about that. It's guaranteed to come up in an interview if you said you like that. So that's where you've got to have complete complex knowledge, and don't pick something generic. I'll show you some examples in a second. Don't pick, well, some of the bad examples that we'll see, but pick something that's really unique, something they haven't seen before. Because don't forget, these admissions tutors in personal statements and interviews, they have seen thousands. They see hundreds every year, and they go, what makes this kid different? And if they see something that they haven't seen before or that is really unique, they'll want to ask you about it. They'll want to invite you to interview, to have a conversation, because they'll go, this sounds really cool. This sounds really interesting. This girl is focused on something really, really unique, and I want to find out more. So there's a couple of examples for law. There's some very wide-ranging blockchain, EU law, Brexit, media law. Those are things that have happened before. But these are kind of the really specific ones you can dive into. So on the left are very generic bad topics that if you say, I like reading about love in English poetry, well done, sounds nice, it's very wide-ranging, there's too much breadth, there's not enough depth, and you're not demonstrating enough passion or critical analysis of a close topic. However, if you look at the representation of women in Shakespeare's plays, particularly in the modern day context, and how it's changed perhaps to the 16th century presentation of women, and how it can be updated in line with modern views around gender and equality, that's quite interesting. It's not necessarily new, but there's an angle within that that you can definitely find and build upon. And again, history, World War II, great, but so broad and so done. But the history of meteorology and astrology, okay, you know, you've watched a bit of Brian Cox or something like that, you're kind of into that stuff, you like combining with history, great, go for that. And again, my point is, don't be too, try to be unique and try to be specific and pick 3 of these areas to focus on. And you can only do this after you've got your wide ranging knowledge. You can't now go, well, I want to study law, I know nothing about law, I'm only going to focus on Brexit and EU law, I'm only going to focus on media law. You can't do that. You've got to first develop the passion at a wider level before you can specialize. And again, those feed into the qualities that the university is looking for. And then just a little bit of note about how to read. And I realize that's incredibly patronizing, and I'm not talking to 5-year-olds, so don't worry. However, reading is different to academically and critically reading something. Again, when I got to university and I was asked to read something, okay, I can do that. But then they ask you to actually critically analyze what you're doing. I'm going, whoa, I've got no idea what they're talking about. This is a completely new skill for me. And I wish I'd done some more of it at A-level and GCSE, and I wish I prepared more. So it's not just about interpreting, it's about asking questions, it's about challenging ideas, it's about applying wider knowledge, it's about applying context, it's also about taking things out of context and analyzing objectively based on your knowledge. And again, the point is that the more you do this, the more able you are to react to the unusual situations during the admissions tests, which could be ranged from anything. There are set questions, and we do a lot of admissions test work, so we can help you prepare, and we can teach you how to answer questions and the general things that should come up. But we can't tell you every single thing that's ever going to come up. So you will have answers go, I don't know, but however, my context, and this really interestingly links to this, which I have studied, it all adds up and it all builds on the work you've been doing before. So even now, even if whatever year you're in, even if you're 3 or 4 years away from applying to universities, always think of, as you're reading something, whether it's in science, English, history, geography, economics, always think, what do I think? What is my personal opinion? You've got to have a personal opinion about these, and that comes from the passion. Again, when I turned up to university, people started asking me my personal opinion of stuff. I was terrified. I've never had to do this before. I just found some quotes online. Actually, we didn't have online back in the day. I had to find them in papers, but that's age. But I found these quotes, and and I thought, wow, how do I interpret this? Am I applying my own values to it? Am I applying my interests? And then also, what am I learning and why am I learning it? Think about, analyze the text externally and think about it critically as well. So again, these are all skills that I know sound patronizing. I know some I already do that, but they are things that can be taught. And as a team, we teach a lot of these modules on critical thinking and wider reading, because students, even if you're really bright and you can do any equation under the sun in 2 seconds, you still need these wider skills to analyze and think critically. And that feeds again into those qualities that UK universities are looking for. And then a couple of other ideas, the way to boost your applications. Again, I've spoken about the EPQ, the extended project qualification. The IB has the IBQ, IPQ. And again, any way to sort of do anything that's a qualification beyond the bare minimum, beyond the basic demands of the classroom, that's a great way to show it off. Something like the John Locke essay competition, you might have heard of it. Again, it's an international, world famous essay competition. We've helped loads of students prepare for these, and as part of the guidance, we're saying, well, you should be entering these competitions. You say you're passionate about this subject and you want to study it and you want to work in it for 30 years. You've got to look at these competitions and you've got to back yourselves to succeed at it, and you've got to be able to submit something. Olympiads, debates, again, we've coached students through all of these, and they're such a vital part of demonstrating those qualities and the extracurricular prowess that you need to show. And the academic attainment beyond your exams, that's the key word. Beyond exams, beyond classroom, they're your building block. You've got to tick those boxes to get in, but everyone's going to be doing that. You've got to show what the next level is, how you really distinguish yourselves from everyone else, basically. And then just a quick note on UK versus US. It's slightly off topic, but it's interesting because we always get asked, well, I want to go to the US as well. What's the difference? And something like Oxford and Cambridge. And we look at costs, we look at years, and people go, well, the US to me sounds much more attractive. Yes, I mean, sure, I'd actually love to study in the States for a year or two, it'd be fantastic. But when you're comparing it to top UK universities, for example, Cambridge versus Stanford, it is actually much more affordable for international students, still a lot of money. So you have to, again, when you talk to your parents, it'd be one of the reasons you're passionate. If you're spending that sort of money, you've got to care about what you're doing. And it's got to feed into what you want to do. But again, the sort of specialization in one area, the application process is different. So this feeds back into what subject I should do. So it's not just what subject, but where do I apply with this subject? How is it different? How are the admissions processes different? How do I show off best those 5 key criteria that university is looking for too? Am I better at speaking? Am I better at specializing in one thing? Am I better at covering a lot of areas? Am I better at tests? That all has to feed into passion as well. So it all fits together as one lovely big ball of kind of ideas and stuff you've got to be thinking about now. And depending on where you are in your school career, you can think about the detail later on. That's fine, near the application process deadlines. But for now, you've got to start thinking about, what am I interested in? How do I start thinking academically, critically? And you can't start thinking about this stuff too early. Not to scare you. It's fine. I was very last minute, so it is possible, but we don't recommend it at all. The more you can do it, the better prepared you're going to be and the better chance of success you're going to have. So that's really just a quick run through of some of the ideas that we found. So like I said, we do lots of, we work with a lot of universities, we get lots of data, we speak to undergraduates who have interviewed recently, we speak to postgraduates, we have admissions tutors that we talk to. And those are some of the very broad, wide-ranging things that we've drawn out of these conversations to show that, okay, this is what they're looking for. This is what students need. Now, for much more detailed stuff, I'll hand over again now, so you can be told what the next steps are if you want to build on this knowledge, if you want to learn more. This was just to give you a taster, to whet your appetite and think, okay, maybe I could be an Oxbridge student. Maybe I could be G5. And now you've decided that, what do you do next? So back over to you, Shok.
Thank you so much, Matthew. So we have come to an end to our presentation. We welcome right now, I think we have 10 minutes or so for questions. So if any of you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat box. Try our best to answer them. Otherwise, you can always, of course, scan our barcode here. It will lead you to our page where you get to do your initial meeting. And then, or you can email us, or you can even follow us in any of our social media and contact us through there. So far, I didn't see any questions from any of the students, but I would like to ask a couple questions from my end, because I know a lot of students tend to ask these questions. So I'm just.
Sounds good. Far away.
Okay. So the first question would be, do I have to study A-level in order to go to Oxford or Cambridge?
No, you do not. You can, the IB is also absolutely fine. A-level is the most common. They also have, if you want to find out exactly if you're studying a national curriculum, you can find that on the Cambridge or Oxford websites to show the grades required on that. So no, any academic background is absolutely fine. And as long as you're high achieving, it doesn't really matter.
So as long as it's equivalent to an A-level or an IB diploma, it should not be an issue, because there are certain curriculums, international curriculums, you still need to do. If you are not doing an A-level and you're not doing an IB diploma or an IB, you would require additional courses like an A-level exams or so forth.
Yeah, it's about the length of studies. Yeah, exactly. So if your length of study is less than that of A-level, so 13 years, then absolutely you need the foundation.
It is required, yes. So I have here a question from Ahmed, is asking, I'm interested in medicine. Excellent. Is it recommended for me to study 4 A-levels or 3 A-levels and an EPQ?
That's a very good question. Depends where you want to apply, really. There are ways to do 4 A-levels and an EPQ. So there are courses in holidays or online you can take outside of your school things. The more you can do, the better, but don't suffer in one area because you're trying to do too much. The minimum grade requirements are only ever going to be 3. But obviously showing that more, 4 A-levels is great, 3 in an EPQ is great. It depends on the EPQ, what area you're specializing in. It depends on the university. And it's worth looking at all the university websites to see what they say about the EPQ. Some will value it very highly. They all value it very highly. Some will count it as a grade requirement. Oxford and Cambridge like it. So I would actually I think it's possible to do 4 and then maybe look at EPQs over the summer or something like that. As long as you're okay, don't take on too much and stress yourself out. As long as you think you're capable of it, do as much as you can.
Yeah. Well, another thing to add on to that, which is excellent, is that if you do plan to do 4 A levels, presumably a lot of students look into doing 4 A levels thinking that one of them, you know, at least 3 of them would pass them through. But take into consideration, if the load is overload, you might not, you know, succeed with the whole 4 levels or 3 to be good. So take into consideration in that the capacity, if you're able to or not. I have another question here from Mira. She's asking, are APs essential in the top G5 universities? That's an American curriculum.
Yeah, I don't specialize in the American curriculum
No
so
worries.
much. So you might actually know better.
Yes,
You might know the answer to that
let me
better
answer
than
that
yeah, I
first.
think.
Okay, so APs, it is equivalent to an A level. So it is required either two APs or 3 APs, depending on which university you're looking at and which course. So if you're looking into specific courses, you need to make sure that the APs that you're taking are relevant to the course that you want to study at that university. So some universities will ask for you, for example, 2 APs with one SAT2. Some universities will actually ask you for 3 APs. So double check with the university's website in order to check, or you can contact us, of course, and we can guide you through if that's of interest to you. I have here another question. Yeah.
I was just going to say, yeah, for these sort of detailed personal questions, you know, arrange that initial meeting, use that QR code there. This is exactly the sort of stuff, you know, this is much more wide ranging in general. So if you want that specific information, this is what we're here for if you book that initial meeting.
Another question here, very generic. Harini is asking, what are the English test requirements like IELTS? That's a very good question. I can answer that. Well, it depends on the university. Now, IELTS, it is accepted by the majority of the UK universities. It is considered the #1 in terms of UK universities. However, some universities right now are accepting alternative language proof for international students, and you can always check with the website on the universities that you plan to study at, or you can contact us to be sure of the information ahead of time. Another question here I have from Demla is asking, are stats needed or well received from UK universities? I think this one is also to the American curriculum with the APs. It's the same thing that I responded to Mira. It all depends on the university and the course that you tend to apply to. The majority of universities, if you're only doing that, you may not be eligible for first year. If you're doing APs, you may be eligible for first year. However, if you're only doing SAT, you may be eligible for foundation. Unfortunately, not all top G5 universities accept foundation. Oxford and Cambridge do not have foundation. They do expect students to have an equivalency of an A level. I have a question here. Okay. Also, Harini is asking, also if possible, please give an idea about what is the duration when it has to start, your fee, etc. I'm not quite sure you talk about duration in terms of what. Can you elaborate, Harir? I have another email here. Mira, in American curriculum, we don't have IB or A level. So where can we head to practice or learn more about it in Apply? Beautiful. This is why we're here, Mira. So we do provide tutoring in order to prepare you for these top universities if you're planning to study in any of those top universities. If your school is American curriculum, you may ask your school if they're doing APs, okay? And on the basis of your course that you want to study and which university will depend. Now, what we will do is we can prepare you in all the factors that we just discussed and Matthew has mentioned, and preparing you well in advance, especially currently if you are year 10 or grade 11, year 11, or year 12, or grade 11. So we'll be able to help you with that on the process. Another question here. Let's see here. Fadel, what is the most efficient way to prepare for an IELTS exam? Would you like to take that one, Matt?
That's all yours. Again, this is your expert area. You go for it.
The best way to prepare for an IELTS exam is to prepare for it. Either you go to an English language center in the UK, or we can also offer you online English language preparation for IELTS exam. Just get in touch with us. We'll be happy to help you with that. Another question here. Does summer courses count as work experience, especially for medicine? Oh, this one's for you, Matt.
That is my area. It doesn't count as work experience. However, it does show that you have a passion. So it's not to be considered the same. Summer programs are looked upon favorably because you do get experience and you do get to study areas you wouldn't do in school. So it can never be a bad thing. However, actual work experience of medicine probably involves going into maybe not a hospital, but an actual medical environment whenever you can, and actually having hands-on rather than theoretical summer school knowledge. So not that they're both great, but they're slightly different and both considered slightly differently by universities. Possibly work experience slightly above summer schools, which pays me the same, but they're both really valued quite highly.
Lovely. I don't see any other questions, but let me just ask one last question from my end that I know a lot of students tend to ask me, is that what do I need to do exactly if I'm on A level and in year 10 and I plan to study, I want to study in Oxford or Cambridge? What are the steps?
Well, everyone's different, but like I said, the deadline for Oxford and Cambridge is October the 15th every year. And at all other universities, the UK, January the 15th. So you've got, basically that's going to be in your last year of study. So year 13, grade 13, whatever, the last year, grade 12. So really, the latest you want to start really actively thinking about building your knowledge, the knowledge building, is probably January, February, before that October. That's when you really need to start focusing. However, the earlier you can bring it back, the better. So if you start looking at critical thinking skills, if you start looking at wider reading and knowledge building in certain areas as far back as year 12 or 11, that's only going to ever help, because generally once you hit February of your before the October deadline, that's when you're doing really intensive, in-depth study of the areas you've already decided on. So that's knowledge building. You're doing the depth and the breadth a little bit. Then you go into your personal you start a little bit working your personal statement. Then you've got your A levels, your IBs to study May, June, July. You're going to be pretty busy with those. Your summer personal statements at the very latest, you probably should do it a bit earlier. And then you've got to start preparing for your admissions tests if they apply to your subjects university, which are now at the same time around October, November time. So you've got a lot of stuff crammed into a small space of time. You can start prepping intensely January, February, and a lot of our students do. However, the more you can do earlier, so going back as far as year 11, early stages of year 12, and developing those critical thinking skills and doing that breadth's that one, before you focus on the depth, then you can really give yourself enough time to relax a little bit, and it won't interfere with your exams, and you'll feel much more relaxed about the process as you go. Of course, now all the students are getting interviews and you've got 2 weeks to prepare. So you're always going to have that panic if you get the interview, but the more you can do before that and a longer time, the better, basically.
Lovely. So these are the things that Matthew just mentioned that we offer as tutoring in various ways. The earlier you start, we can be able to help you prepare well in advance, give you the necessary process and to ease the process for you. And again, if you're year 10 right now, this is the perfect time to start, selecting certain tutoring for you in terms of knowledge building, reading capacity, choosing a course, going in depth, and then by that, the summer giving you advice on what kind of work experience or relevant work you can do. Once you start your year 11, that's when we start be able to get more tutoring in depth, help you with your EPQ if you're an A level, of course, and other that. And then by the end of year 12, hopefully you'll be able to have an idea on personal statement, and we can prepare you and give you tutoring as well on personal statement and interviews if needed as well. I have another question here. Do you assist in getting university scholarships? Oh, that's a good question. Now, we do not offer scholarship and we do not assist in getting scholarship. What we can do is for those who do go and take our packages, we can help in providing information on how to look for scholarship in certain universities that you may like to go into and you want to study. I hope that made clear. Is there any other questions for those? I think that is it so far. If there's anything else, Matt, that you'd like to add for the students?
No, I mean, I'd just like to say thank you. And as I say, this wasn't supposed to answer. You're all very different. You're in very different circumstances. This was meant to be a pure high level overview, sharing some personal experience. And the next step is you've got to think about your own personal circumstances and do take time to consult one-on-one, because every student is different and every student needs that different study plan and option. So I hope I gave you an introduction. I know I wouldn't have answered any detailed questions, but that was never the point. But thank you very much for joining. And hopefully I might have inspired you with some lovely pictures of Oxford, if nothing else, to apply to Oxford and Cambridge or somewhere in the UK. And hopefully look forward to speaking to you all again soon.
Thank you so much, Matthew. And thank you for those who stayed until the end and joined us. And I hope you had a very insightful, very informative information, give you an inspiring future, hopefully, to get you into Oxbridge or the top G5. Again, as Matt says, please do go ahead and book your initial meeting to see if you can. You never know, we might be able to get you into the top 5G universities. Thank you so much. And I'd like to say good night for everyone. Bye-bye.